All right, so now let's go through part B2. Said given the following rate of production of O2, remember we're still using this thing, and they've given us the rate of production of O2. They said calculate the rate of consumption of O3. Okay, so we have O2, we are going to O3. So what do? We first divide. We say that the rate of consumption of O3, we can say delta, or we can say delta O3 over delta T. It's going to be, we are starting from O2. So what do? We divide by 3, okay? And then what do? We multiply by 2. So it'll be 2 over 3. And what do we put with 2 over 3? The rate of consumption, the rate delta O2 over delta T. Which is going to be 2 over 3 times 1.25 times 10 to the power of 2 molar per second, which is going to be times 10 to the power of 2. So I'm going to say 1.25 exponent 2 divided by 3, then times 2. So we have 83.3 molar per second. Then we go to part 2, the second one. They said the rate of reaction. All right, so to get the rate of reaction, it's just, we can say that rate is just equal to delta, it's one third times the change in concentration of O2 over the change in time. We just use this guy, but because he's 3 moles, we divide him by 3 to get rid of that 3, right? Where am I? Okay, yes, to get rid of this 3, so that's what we are going to do. So now sorry for this guy, let me get rid of him for you. So what we're going to have is going to be 1/3 times 1.25 times 10 to the power of 2 molar per second, which is going to be, the answer is going to be 41.7 molar per second. That's going to be your rate, and you are done. Now let's do part B. It's saying list the 2 parts of a solution. It is the solute and solvent. This is so easy, right? And then now let's talk about CI. It's saying you have the solubility of sodium chloride in water at 20 degrees being, and 1 atmosphere being 36 grams per 100 grams. Use the information in terms of NaCl in 1 atmosphere. Supersaturated solution. When we say we have a supersaturated solution, that means here you've been told the solubility at 20 degrees. For you to get a supersaturated, you'd have tweaked the conditions. You change some conditions, and then by changing conditions, now all of a sudden the solubility will increase. And then you get a supersaturated solution when you put. So we say a supersaturated solution is one saturated solution is one that contains more dissolved solute, is one that contains more dissolved solute than what is normally soluble. At a given temperature. So yes, here we say that more dissolved solute than what is normally normally soluble, okay, than what is normally soluble. And this is obviously at a given temperature, and pressure. Okay, it contains more solute than what is normally soluble at a given. Why? How does it do it? It is done by changing the conditions. When the conditions are changed, then you can have this solution taking in more, and then you can make your supersaturated solution. So what is it? It is one that contains more than what is normally acceptable, right? Then here, a saturated solution. A saturated solution, when you say we have a saturated solution, it is just one. This one we said it is usually achieved by changing conditions, right? We can say usually achieved so here usually achieved, how do I write this? Usually achieved by changing conditions. That's what happens, by changing conditions. Now for us, for the second thing, for what we would call, this is a supersaturated. Now for us to have a saturated solution, so we would say saturated solution. To get a saturated solution. What is a saturated solution? It is a solution, it would be a solution that contains the maximum number at that temperature, that contains the maximum amount, the maximum amount of dissolved solid. Here we said in supersaturated, it has more than the maximum. In here, it actually contains the maximum amount of dissolved solid at a given temperature, okay, of dissolved solid at a given temperature, okay. So at a given temperature. All right, now that is it. And then unsaturated, it has less solid than the maximum for that given temperature. That's unsaturated. Less than the maximum. So for unsaturated, you can say it is less than maximum. Okay, less solid than maximum. So here we say it has in 3. Here, what we would have, we said less solid than maximum. So yes, there we have. So less solid than maximum amount, than max. That is an unsaturated solution, okay? And we'll stop it here and do the next one in the next video.